Yeah, no worries. She filled my glass. Because she said her one thing, and then she said, my God, that's just like shower. Yeah. Never answered me either. $10. 9 o'clock. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to call, it is 3 o'clock. We are going to call this study session to order. Anne Marie, could we please begin with a roll call?
Councilmember Jones. Here. Councilmember Kemp. Here. Councilmember Whalen.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Orgel.
Here.
Mayor Renagi.
Here. So as everyone, most of the people here know, for study sessions, we're not taking any direct formal action. The goal is to have a conversation at a high level and get council feedback, get community feedback, and then any specific action items would come back later as an agendized item on our regularly scheduled agenda. So we have a tight time frame here. So I will turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Gavin Curran. And I think that unless council feels differently, I'd like to see if we can have them go through the whole presentation and then have some questions on all the issues, unless we feel like there's a need to break them up. So let's just have the presentation and we can kind of go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a quick introduction. So obviously this is just a continuation of the June 24th Facilities Master Plan Workshop. We're coming back to the council tonight with a couple of items that were talked about that June 24th. And I'll go through them just real briefly, and Dustin will as well. Really, whether to confirm the village entrance is the preferred site for the Fire Station 1 and the feasibility of relocating our EOC at that site. That's one question. The preferred valuation and land use strategy for the community recreation center site. Do we retain? Do we sell? Do we lease? Some questions will come before the council, so it'd be great to get some direction on that. Conceptual design ideas for Lang Park, including some community-focused improvements and structured parking. That will be talked about as well today. And then one that's not actually in the presentation, but another question we had for the council to get an answer on is whether to initiate any discussions with the community and with the Laguna Beach County Water District regarding the potential for future use for the city or city direct use of the district building, which is just right to our right there, to support long-term administrative and public safety space needs. So at least we get some direction on that as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dustin Alamo with Griffin Structures to take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Gavin. Hey, good afternoon. Nice to see everyone, Mayor, members of the council. Dustin Alamo, Griffin Structures, and Vice President, and serving as a project manager for this endeavor. Also have Ed Del Baccaro here from TRI Commercial. That's serving as our economic analysis consultant. So he'll be sharing some information as we go through the presentation. But as Gavin mentioned, we're really focused on the three projects in front of us here: Fire Station 1, CRC, and Lang Park. And then we'll talk about some next steps with recommendations. So as a recap, the last council session, we received very clear feedback that's helped shape this follow-up. For Fire Station 1, the existing site is too constrained, and council has asked us to ensure that the proposed site is the most viable location compared to some of the alternatives. For the CRC, you asked us to test housing and economic models to help fund reinvestment in the civic facilities. And for Lang Park, there was some interest in a more ambitious redevelopment concepts that incorporate structured parking. So we've incorporated all those direction in the work that we're going to share with you today. And then additionally, there were a couple of directives to staff on the library and forum theater projects or facilities, excuse me. And we'll be returning with those in the near future following some additional conversations and updates. So let's start with Fire Station 1. Again, the feedback we received was clear, and you agreed that the existing location is inadequate for long-term operations. It's undersized, it's difficult to access with that intersection, and challenged by the historic nature of the facility. So we instead proposed to locate it to the site north of City Hall here. But there's interest in question in ensuring that it's the best location given the valuable real estate. We're also asked to evaluate EAOC integration into the facility and the parking impacts. And so the overarching question is whether the proposed site remains the best use for downtown property, or if relocation could deliver a stronger operational and civic value. So in our analysis, we compared the existing site and proposed site against several potential locations, city-owned locations, including the Christmas tree lot and the tennis court site across the street at the festival property. Working with Fire Chief King, we evaluated each on cost, response time, zoning compatibility, and major constraints. And the proposed site scored the highest among all the sites in question. The Christmas tree lot has accessibility and response time issues, while the tennis court site is currently part of the festival lease and would require negotiations beyond the study, plus access onto the canyon, which would be challenging for the fire folks. We also looked beyond city-owned properties to assess several downtown alternatives. This included the Goodyear site, the former bus stop, and the Pepper Tree lot. These all maintain the appropriate response times, standard of coverage, but they face zoning hurdles as well as acquisition costs. And we also looked at Northern Laguna, but that scored lower on the points, if you will, due to longer response times being outside the standard of coverage. So the key takeaway is that there's a lot of different options, most that can be viable, but there's trade-offs as you look at each one, particularly around cost, acquisition, timing, zoning, and operational efficiencies. So one option we also explored was co-locating Fire Station 1 with the PD and the EOC in a single shared complex. Operationally, it is feasible, but it's a significant lift. It would require a robust city hall renovation, structured parking, and a lot of coordination between all the different departments there, with a cost range of between $90 and $121 million, and that's in today's dollars. While that could be a long-term vision, it likely exceeds the near-term funding capacities. And then lastly, we studied whether the EOC could be directly incorporated into Fire Station 1. From a functional standpoint, definitely, as we can stay within the 36-foot limit restriction. You could see the illustration there, the green piece adding over the app bay to stay within the 36-foot limit. Factoring the EOC adds roughly $6 million to the project, bringing the total project cost to $30 to $33 million, inclusive of Fire Station 1, fire admin, and the EOC, all in one facility. So that's a lot of information on Fire Station 1. Now let's move over to the CRC. So this site drew a lot of council interest at the last meeting, particularly on how it could play a role in meeting both community and housing needs while serving as a catalyst for civic reinvestment. So council expressed openness to housing on the CRC sites while also recognizing the importance of preserving the existing gym and fields. You also asked that we analyze economic scenarios from outright sale to long-term partnerships, to understand how the site could generate funding for the community reinvestment. So as part of our analysis, we have two options that we used to frame that discussion. Concept 1 explores a more robust redevelopment at approximately 270 units, which you can see on the screen there. Now, these are not design proposals. They're just land use scenarios meant to understand the scale, the value, and feasibility of doing so. Concept 2 is a little bit of a smaller development option, up to 126 residential units on roughly half of the site while preserving the existing gym. Now, parking is accommodated in a subterranean garage beneath a new park shown in green on the illustration on the screen here. And then this is just going to that subterranean level in this same concept, showing parking of up to 122 stalls under the park. Now, because the CRC site could potentially or fully redevelop, we identified where existing programs could be relocated. For example, fire admin functions could shift to the Fire Station 1 as discussed in the previous section. Recreation classrooms and early childhood programs could relocate to a new Lang Park Community Center if that were to happen. This would ensure the continuity of public services while unlocking the CRC's potential to fund broader civic priorities. Okay, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Ed Del Picaro from Tri-Commercial. Walk you through the economics.
Hi, thank you, Dustin, and thank you, Mayor and council members, for this opportunity. So what I'm going to do is very briefly evaluate the various options to leverage a portion of the 6.3 acre site. By the way, a lot of that site is unbuildable, as you can see, the habitat land to the back. And we'll look at partial development, full development, as is to a private developer, or the city entitles it with a partner, and other type analysis. As a spoilers alert, the property is extremely valuable, no matter what you do, despite the current market. Next slide. Here, just briefly, you can read that Laguna Beach is on the commercial office side. You know, most of the West Coast office is a disaster, but here the vacancy is 6.1%, half the Orange County average. Retail is very strong here. The rents are very high, 73 to 77 triple net per year. And multifamily vacancy is quite low. And part of that reason is constrained development, limited supply. Next. So then just a brief view of the housing demographics, most of which you already know. The average home price is $3.5 million in 225, which is 2 times the county average. Housing growth has been negligible, only 2% since 1991. It's of an affluent renter base. The median income is $85,000 a year for those renters, which is not nearly enough to buy. One of the issues we identified is aging homeowners. 51% are seniors. So unintended consequence of Prop 13 is people aging in place, less people per unit. The long-term demographic is actually no growth in the population, which is not that positive. Next slide. Now I'll go into the development analysis. And I'll translate some of the acronyms here. So what we studied was an option 1 is half the site only, and as Dustin mentioned, 126 units in concept, as is to a developer, or the city with a partner puts entitlements. What's it worth? Then I did the entire site. So if you look at the first line, as is, we valued it at, and we had a methodology there's very few land comps locally, but I interviewed many local realtors and developers. And then we do have some comps for Orange County in the area. So market value somewhere from 27 to 28 million as is for half the site. Now, that is pre-affordable housing mandate and pre-prevailing wage. Since it's city property, you'll be required to use prevailing wage for construction cost. And then there's an affordable housing state requirement of X%, 25. So those become a discount. So that would roughly cut it by 30%. But it's still valuable despite that. So you see my numbers in parentheses, 21 million net of those two for half the site. Then the same thing, if we entitled it, you can see 37 to 46 million. And again, these are averages subject to actual market conditions in the building. Then if I net out again, the net affordable housing and prevailing wage, which was a 30% discount, it's still worth, with entitlements, that much more. Rule of thumb, something like 3.5 million to do the entitlement, and you would actually double the money by doing that. For the whole site, briefly, 270 units, and again, this is a hypothetical concept, not the actual, what it would look like. 39 to 40 million as a market value. Net after I do AH is affordable housing, PW is prevailing wage. It's still worth, as is, 29 to 30 million. If you entitle it, and again, rule of thumb I used was just roughly 8 million to get the entitlements for the city program. It's still worth, you can see 45 million net of affordable housing and prevailing wage. Now, when we look at the site, it's 6.3 acres, just to repeat, only 76, if you did the entire site, only 76,000 feet is roughly developable after you take away the hill and setbacks. And then if you only did half the site, only 35,000 feet is actually buildable with ingress, egress, et cetera. Next slide. Another option we analyzed rather, was ground lease. First of all, the rule of thumb for ground leases is that for sale equity property, that's hard to do. Banks don't lend on that, and so that there's a lesser value if it were to do that. Apartments, long-term ground leases can be viable for some apartments, definitely for affordable housing. Affordable housing uses a whole different financing vehicle that has nothing to do with bank loans and things like that, tax subsidies and credits. So there is a way to do ground leases. It is a lesser value, but there's a long-term annuity where you can either structure a deal, it's usually based on the interest rate above the current lending rate, and that could be the ground lease rent. Some of the deals are actually structured where you can actually get a profit margin as part of the capital stack. So there is a viable vehicle if you wanted to do ground leases and not sell the land. But for the value, what would I pay if I was a developer for half the site, as is, subject to a ground lease, subject to prevailing wage, subject to other considerations? My discount was 35, so I have 18 million net for half the site. Again, this is a rule of thumb. And then with entitlements, 27 million, and full site, 26 million net and 39 million. And again, the reason why Laguna Beach is an exception, if this was elsewhere in Orange County or Southern California, I wouldn't be as optimistic, but because there is literally no supply of land, and because there's no opportunity, the demographic is so amazing, and the need for housing is very intense, it could still work, and developers would still be interested. Then our final slide on my part is the key takeaways. We would recommend rezoning to the maximum height density within the 30-foot limit and preserving flexibility as to the unit count there. It doesn't mean displacing the existing use. It's just putting in place the overlay if you wanted to do something down the road. And you could take advantage of the current down market rather, to do this, because that would take, so many months and whatever it takes to do that. And then it could generate literally $20 to $40 million of community benefit, depending upon which of the options you took. And then it would also help qualify and take care of, you have 394 RHNA requirements, and this could go a long way to satisfying that in this one site, plus raising money for other capital projects. And my only last comment is whatever zoning's in place, have some flexibility, because each developer will have a slightly different solution, so they don't have to repeat the whole cycle. Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Ed. All right. Last one, we'll turn to Lang Park, the other major recreational focus of this plan. So council previously directed us not to pursue the light improvements that were around 12 to 13 million in concept, but to explore a more comprehensive redevelopment idea with structured parking and expanded community amenities, which we've done. And those two kind of options that we're going to present tonight, or today, excuse me, are between 65 and 73 million in today's dollars. So first concept now envisions a multi-use community asset with an integrated community center, aquatic complex, pickleball, tennis court, sports field, and subterranean parking, everything possible on site. Now, these components can be pulled if you don't need them, like a pool, or if that is a something the city would want to integrate. It certainly has the space to do so. Zooming into the ground level of the community center, we have a lobby, which then splits off into the gym stage wing, and then on the other wing, there's a preschool, an art studio, and a demo kitchen or teaching kitchen area. And then beneath the community center, the tennis courts and the sports field, there's a subterranean parking structure. The parking counts are A little bit unfavorable. Initial analysis suggests that it may be underparked relative to the amount of demand. But, a comprehensive time and use study would need to be incorporated here to make sure that program and parking capacities align. There's another option as well. It's pretty similar, but it's developed with removal of the sports field in this option. And then the subterranean parking would go along Coast Highway. So in this scenario, again, a pool is illustrated, though the city could pursue a different direction if aquatics facilities were no interest here. A sports field or a park space could be incorporated in that bottom corner there. So the ground floor of the building, same concept as what was shown before. So I'll just jump to the last page to show you the subterranean structure. The parking structure in this option is outside of the community center, so you don't have that stack, which incurs more costs. Now, there's certainly more options that could be explored here to maximize parking or reposition community services, but this gives you an appropriate level of understanding of what the site can yield relative to turning into a state-of-the-art community asset. So looking ahead, our next steps are to include today's feedback, finalize facility master plan report, and return to council for adoption. So with that said, I'll turn to you guys for any questions.
Thanks for that really great presentation. Super interesting and a lot for us to provide feedback on. So council, do we have questions at this point, or do we want to hear from the public? And then I want to make sure we have I'd like to have 20 minutes for the council to be able to provide feedback here. So are there questions?
Yeah, I'm good if we have the last 20 minutes.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions.
You have questions too,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
maybe should aim for 25. Okay. So is that the consensus up here?
Yeah.
Okay, so and please raise your hands very high because we can't have extra people. So who would like to provide testimony on this? So Hallie, are you counting? Okay, so we have 7 hands. So if we go let's do 2 minutes on this, and then so that way we'll have ample time for feedback. And again, this is a study session. We're very early and preliminary. So let's do 2 minutes. Let's please line up and provide your testimony.
I won't use 2 minutes. I have one agenda, and I was so happy to see the Forum Theater up there. As we all know, the city owns all of the grounds and all of the improvements on the grounds of the Festival of Arts. And we have a limited performance, meeting, so forth, space, and we need it handicapped accessible. And this would be, to me, it's not a real expensive process to make it handicap accessible so everybody can use it and it can be used by more groups. So, because it sits empty a great deal of the time. So I'm really hoping that this will become a priority of yours. And I'm actually not speaking as a festival board member. I'm speaking as an arts advocate. Yes. And I'm stumbling with my new hip and knee.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate that testimony.
Good afternoon, Gary Kasich. I'll only take about a minute. The analysis of CRC, was there any consideration for acquiring the Ruby's property? I had mentioned this before. I think that's a synergistic opportunity. Owning that property would make the current CRC property even more valuable, or doing the deal with the developer that way. And 2, with the math, what would be the tax roll impact if those, whatever the options are? I think that's a pretty big number that should be somewhere in the analysis. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Aaron Peluso. I live in the neighborhood above Lang Park. I primarily, I'm not going to make it through under 2 minutes here, but I think I got to boil it down. And so these proposals in South Laguna, we're adding a ton of parking is being proposed subterranean. And it just seems to me that that's going to be abused by beachgoers in the summer months. It seems like if you build a space, they will come. And I don't think that we need to have, I think our beaches are already at capacity or over capacity on the busiest days. And if we add this parking without any thought provided to that, we're going to be in big trouble. So I think, we should probably be looking, if we build a space, we should probably be getting a resident space in the neighborhoods. And, I know we have to go to coastal to do that, but I think that should be the priority. If we're paying millions of dollars to build more spaces, then we should be, being able to limit it within the neighborhoods for safety and otherwise. I also understand that we're under there's a proposal or a plan in place to do a resources management document and define our capacity. So it seems like we should just slow down on adding any big parking here and make sure that it's part of a comprehensive plan. In regards to Lang Park in particular, since that's our local park, I mean, multiple generations of my family have been there, gone to Annalise's. What's special about that is it's outdoor spaces, mature trees, et cetera. It primarily serves the residents, but it draws people from, I know parents who come from Redlands to go there and have their kid there, and it's not going to be replaced by, a little space set back in a larger building. That field there, it's t-ball, it's soccer, it's birthday parties, it's everything for us. And I just don't know that there's been enough attention paid to the removal of our local park for this perhaps regional asset. There are some underutilized portions there. Something could be done there, but this intensive remodel is perhaps a little bit much for us. I like the way you're thinking on St. Catharines, including what the prior gentleman said. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry for the 2 minutes, but appreciate the being cooperative.
Hi, my name is Robin Hall, and I would just like to question the order of having residents come up here and ask questions and being limited to 2 minutes. Residents have a lot of questions. This is a lot of development that's going to go on in the city, and we've already got a lot going on. A lot of questions about the financing and how this is going to be absorbed, how are we going to pay for it? But it seems to me that Council and Sue, you said you had lots of questions. It would have been much better for information for the residents, for Council to ask their questions so we could once again have a little more information. I feel like by asking us to ask our questions first, it doesn't give us the insight that you have that we don't have by all the documents. So I once again feel like this is a restriction of residents' input. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
God, she's tall. I'll try to keep this quick. On Fire Station 1, we're told that that's the highest cost, and I think I asked Gavin last time why it was so high, and part of the reason is seismic retrofitting. But I'm kind of curious as to whether that's absolutely necessary. I know when I just recently got my insurance premium, earthquake insurance, the rules had changed, and where my house previously had been okay, now I needed to get some other things done in order to meet the earthquake requirements. But I asked the guy, is it going to make it any safer? And he said no. So I just wonder, whether we really need to do all of that. If that's primarily driving the cost, I don't know if it is. On the CRC, it's a lot of questions, but we're going to build parking for 122 stalls, and the smallest of the units is 126 units. Largest is 270, so we're going to have a parking problem right out of the box. And I just would like to be sure that we don't lose track of the fact that we actually borrowed $11 million to buy this property, so that should be considered in any analysis that we do. And finally, with Lang Park, I mean, St. Catharines was bought to be a recreation center, and I don't know if we're going away from that totally and why we're doing that, but if we, could we still do the recreation center at CRC, and what was the original plan for Lang Park if we had done that, and what would that cost? Thank you. Less than 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good job. Next speaker, please.
A lot of things to go over. Obviously with Fire Station 1, I don't know the whole backstory, what's going on there, but it seems like, we're moving one thing, we're moving, changing what downtown Laguna is supposed to look like with City Hall. You're building another fire station, maybe building that one first, make sure that goes all well before deciding on moving another fire station and building a whole nother one. When it comes to CRC St. Catharines, like the previous speaker said, wasn't it bought for a community center? It's been 3 years, and now we're just giving up on that. And based on that, it sounds like from some of the people in here, it's kind of scary. It's like, build, build, build. Let's turn Laguna into, Newport or like Miami or something like that. Let's stuff as many apartment buildings as we can. Like just because we have open space doesn't mean we have to build on it. Like Lang Park, just because, it's one of our parks that's near the ocean. Oh, we should build something there. It's empty. Let's build something. It's really frustrating to see that because Laguna is known for its open space. I mean, I played soccer there when I was a kid, late 80s, early 90s. And just because it's there, why are we building it? We shouldn't be limiting public space for the community members, for the citizens, because we should be focusing on the people who live in Laguna, and not trying to build for developers. Like, this is scary to see these recommendations. Why are we aligning ourselves with these people who have ulterior motives of trying to maximize dollar per square foot? That's not what we're known for here in this town. And we shouldn't be doing things like that with public space. We should be, have we spoken to, and part of that report, did they speak to any of those people who live over there? In that Victoria area? That's a very small road. There's no street light. Now you're going to pack in another 200 something units or 120 units. That's just crazy. And if we're already struggling using that community center because it hasn't been, publicized within the community, we think we're going to build out Lang Park and then people are going to start using that. What tells you that? I mean, I would focus on letting the community know that that space is available and trying to maximize it, because I thought that's what we built it for or bought it for. And it's only been 3 years. So we should try to, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll speak on this again later on, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm John Thomas. I'm reading a letter that you should have received from South Laguna Civic Association. On behalf of our membership in South Laguna neighborhood residents, South Laguna Civic Association writes today to encourage the study committee, as it considers further facilities investments, to do so with a deliberate focus on resident participation in the planning process. Of note, we are aware that there is a discussion of on future uses and investments at Lang Park. We are obviously passionate about the future of Lang, as it represents South Laguna's only local community center, our original school site, the largest green space in the area, all artifacts of investment prior to acquisition by the city in the 1980s. Our membership deeply cares about and has advocated for more investment and placement of city resources in South Laguna. Yet, as an organization representing South Laguna residents, we are reluctant to support intensification of more constructed improvements and loss of green space at Lang Park, since it is our only play field. Thus, the committee's discussion of Lang presents an opportunity for thoughtful strategic decisions that have generational impacts. For example, as consideration of Lang investment proceeds, we would hope any decisions made take into account the community's expressed desire to add the open lots at Catalina Street as a new park for South Laguna, as well as the use of what will be the former fire station, number 4, once the new station is built. Plans for use of land near the hospital and potential use of St. Catherine's site in the long term. All of these locations and how they work together to support both the city and the South Laguna neighborhood are key pieces in a broader experience that should be considered. Last sentence. We ask the city, the council, and committee to use this opportunity to develop a strategic vision for how all this works and have an open and transparent process in soliciting resident feedback to help shape an excellent outcome. In essence, let's solicit some input from the community before we turn it over to the consultants to provide designs.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Council and Christoph. Regarding the fire station number 1, I'm concerned about using up that precious village entrance space that we created for a new fire station. As we saw in South Laguna, the fire station grows and grows and grows and will take up a lot of that space that is in the heart of our city that's needed for parking and park, not for another city building. So if you find another site, it seemed like the automobile repair place might be a potential. The rest of them don't seem feasible to me. I would recommend that you look at those instead of putting it there. Regarding Lang Park, that's supposed to be a park. It's supposed to be a lot of green space the way it is. And what you're showing is to tear down all the existing improvements and start over with new construction and putting parking underneath. This is all too grandiose. We can't afford these things. We need to take advantage of what we already have in terms of building and work around it and plan something that is affordable and feasible and not too much trouble, not too much disturbance of how we use our spaces. Regarding the CRC, again, we have a brand new facility there with beautifully constructed buildings, and these options are proposing to tear them all down and build something else. And it seems like what we need to do is use the buildings that we have there and figure out what would be the best way to use them. Maybe there's some of those could be converted into housing, but I think the majority of them should be used for community purposes. And parking underneath the field seems like a reasonable thing. Thank you.
Thank you. And then our final speaker. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm late. I just came from the beach. Great presentation. So I'd like to say that I agree with what Aaron said and Nick about the Lang Park situation. I just don't foresee more parking and like added, like Aaron said, if you build it, they will come. Just across the street, underneath the Gelson's parking lot, or that parking lot's being used for beach access for free. Even that whole center is being used for beach access as well. It's not being, there's no cars being towed, no tickets being given. No, it's just like a free for all. And then you add more spaces at Lang Park, which I agree with Ann. It's a park, it's an open space. I played baseball, t-ball, soccer there when I was a kid growing up, and it's a beautiful lawn. I mean, I suggest everybody in here go walk and check it out in the sunset. It's beautiful. We're not Newport. We're not San Diego. We're not, we're different. We're small. And I think that, keeping it kind of like more toned down in a sense. And then if there is some type of parking that's added, maybe having some type of ability to restrict beach access for that parking, be like facility only. And I don't know if that's even a possibility, and be like, hey, this is just for this area and center. You can't use it for beach parking, and then enforce that. Then that maybe might limit the overspill like Aaron was talking about. But other than that, it's I say kind of keep it, let's keep some things the way they are, because we have a heart and a soul in this town, and if we just keep building over it, it's going to go away. Thank you.
Thank you. And then you'll be our last speaker though. No, everyone else is good, so you'll be our last speaker.
Nancy McKenna. I'm your exact next door neighbors at the community center. We live in represent Grandview Terrace. And I just want to say we were horrified when you just turned the field into a parking lot, because now it's gone from green to brown, and that's what we look at now. Once in a while there's a car there, but very rarely. My own personal experience, and I've been here, my kids went when Lang Park was a school, that's where my kids went. That's how long I've been here. But I've seen more and more places plowed over, plowed down, turned into buildings, and it's not what is making Laguna a nicer place. I think we need to really control the parking and not just keep building. The attitude should not be build more, more parking, bring in everybody. If anything, we need to say, no, there's not any parking here. Park in Irvine and ride the bus, because we've got to protect our beaches. We've got to protect our green space. And I don't want to go from the brown we're looking at to buildings down there. That is just horrifying to me and to the rest of my community. That's all I'm going to say now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to close public comment. Let's bring this back to the council for questions and comments. Who wants to start?
I can start. I'll throw a few things in. So first, and I guess mainly to John's point, what the consultants are doing is collecting and bringing this information to us so a discussion can be had. These aren't designs. These are just a site analysis. I mean, it's just the way it's done. And you can't have a conversation if you don't know what that what the sites can accommodate. So, if anything was to occur, there would be a lot of public input and a chance for discussion. I do agree with Aaron. I think that the Montage Beach especially is at capacity right now, and I don't really think that it needs additional parking for that particular beach. However, if there was a trade-off in the future, as suggested, and there could be some neighborhood only parking created, and we can offset it with consolidated parking, I would be willing to look at that. And I think it would be interesting to look at, this is a very aggressive plan for Lang Park. And I know that the current gym that is at Lang Park now is not adequate compared to the one that's at the CRC. But I think it would be interesting to understand what it would take just to move that part of the facility over there with maybe 6 classroom spaces. Not touch the whole sports field thing and just, leave it as is. It could have some tuck under parking underneath a new building if we did do one. I know that there's additional cost to that, but it would be worth evaluating in my view. Now, of course, that would only take place if we decided on the housing opportunity at the CRC, right? So I think that would be worth looking at if the other council were interested in it, just to look at a less costly, less ambitious project. So those are my comments for now, and that's it.
Okay, who wants to go next?
Yeah, I just have a few questions. I have a few questions. So on Fire Station 1, did you guys, when you're talking about over here in the, next to City Hall, what we call the village entrance, did you look at the access issues there? I mean, how would it be better access there? I mean, this is a busy area here.
That was directed at Chief King, and he said it's better for them with it getting outside of the intersection from this intersection to a little bit upstream. So his recommendation was that it was better operationally.
Would it require a turnaround there, some way to turn the truck around?
Well, it depends. The current plan allows you to loop into the parking lot and come through, pull through station design. So that is accommodated within the site, but there are options if you wanted to limit parking and find some way to, do a turnaround in the intersection or a turntable. I mean, there's a lot of ways to accommodate that.
Did you guys talk about what to do about the existing? My own personal view of that area over there is we should have put the parking back against the hillside, and then we'd have more room here because we keep boxing ourselves in with, we don't make good use of the property that we have. And so now we have, a lot of surface area over there. What did you guys think about where we put the parking then?
Well, the parking structure is not part of our scope necessarily, but having that linear parking structure that was developed in concept seemed to make sense, tucking it into the hillside to give you more frontage for development on the coastal side.
I'm just not sure how we make it work over there. Okay, that's one question. So we have a seismic retrofit. We had an analysis done and a cost analysis on, but did you guys did you guys factor that in or?
On the existing?
Yeah.
On existing fire?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this would be a new building.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But we have this building, which is seismically challenged. And my personal opinion is we shouldn't have public safety buildings be seismically challenged.
Yeah.
Because if we have a big earthquake, then we want to make sure that we can use them properly.
Yeah.
But so
that not only has a seismic issue, but it's also a spatial issue.
Yeah, no, it definitely has a space issue. Yeah. And then on the CRC, I don't know if this is out of your scope or not, but did you guys happen to look? So the existing facility, I imagine our maintenance costs are going to be fairly high because if you walk around and look at that building, you can see a lot of deferred maintenance on it. I mean, it's a nicely built building, but it's going to need a lot of maintenance. Did you guys look at any of the existing state of that facility or?
Yeah, we did a full condition assessment on the whole campus. I don't have the numbers on the tip of my fingers here, but we certainly did that. They're incorporated into the overall maintenance plan and costs when you look at 20-year projections.
Okay. And then on Lang, do you happen to know, so we, we have the gym at the CRC. Do you happen to know what's the size of a standard gymnasium? Like,
It's bigger than that.
it's bigger than what the CRC,
Yeah, the CRC as a standard, yes.
and I think Lang is smaller than the CRC, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever look at, could we just redo the gym over there at Lang and make it
Well,
a better gym?
I'm
It's really
saying
an old gym, not the greatest.
The standard is bigger than what's at Lang. That's what I'm saying. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. No, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Holly or Bob?
A couple thoughts. On Fire Station 1, I still remain committed to finding a new Fire Station 1. This one just isn't going to work. We should focus on that. There's a lot of choices, but all of our fire stations are now more than 50 or 60 years old. We need to find a solution. I would like to know, I tend to think the village entrance site is the right location, but I would like to have more information on the parking impacts and how we might address those. Would we shift more parking down to the Christmas tree lot, maybe with a one story down there? But I think the idea, and maybe the tennis court would be a second choice, the idea of trying to buy a new site, that makes no sense to me. We ought to put it on an existing city site and save money that way. So I'd like to see us focus on a solution for near term for Fire Station number 1. When I say near term, I mean, what are we, I don't know, 5 years into Fire Station 4, 5 or 6? But we ought to pick a location and go with it. I think adding the EOC to it, if it's feasible, makes sense because it's currently in the lunchroom up here. That doesn't make a lot of sense. The CRC, I think it was a great purchase, and I think the economic analysis underlies that. No matter what we do, we've got a tremendously valuable asset that we paid $23 million for, and it's at least worth double that at this point. I don't know, though. My high level reaction when I looked at this was, well, we're just converting. The proposal would be we're just converting the CRC into housing, and then we're replicating a lot of the same facilities over at Lang. We're taking the money from the CRC and we'd be rebuilding it at Lang. So I don't know if that's really any better than that. But I would do this. I would take the recommendation of the consultant, and I would do the overlay district now to kind of lock in the potential value of the site. I think that maybe we need to look at we'll have this conversation in other contexts. We need to look at our RENA numbers and our lack of achievement with respect to our RENA numbers. And what the city attorney told me the other day was, and I had been unaware of, is when you have a shortfall in the current cycle, which is 394, when they give you your new number in 28 or 29, they give you the new number and then they add on top of it the deficit from the current cycle. So it's going to be a spiral for us down. So I think we are probably going to have to look at some way of looking at some housing opportunities over there. But I don't really I don't think I support wiping the whole thing out. I mean, I like the recreation facilities that are there. I think we could be more creative in locating some of the things that are slated here for Lang Park or, potential for Lang Park over there. So I like that concept. Lang Park, somebody said it. I think it's tired. It's old. It's not efficiently laid out. People have heard me say on numerous occasions, the pickleball courts are in the wrong spot. So I think some renovation of that park, even the option here, I mean, Nick talked about playing soccer. Well, there is a field in one of these options. So I think you keep a sports field there. You do some things to refresh it. I liked Greg's thought. I mean, if we could limit the parking to use while using the facility, that's a good concept. I think it is smart to put some parking under there because it's currently underparked anyway, just for even its current uses. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what my fellow council members have said. I'm really concerned about our RENA numbers. I'm really concerned about what the state is going to impose upon us if we don't if we don't fulfill our obligations to provide an opportunity for affordable housing. So I think that's something that needs to be top of our mind. In terms of the fire station locations, it's hard for me to evaluate locations, the difference between different locations without understanding the magnitude of the expense differential, right? So obviously, if we're purchasing a property, that's going to be significantly more expensive. But I just think that diving into that, I'd like a little bit more information on the pluses and minuses of each of these sites. Lang Park, I'm an open space person. I love those big stretches of more natural grass, the big hill that kids can roll down. Where else in Laguna do we have a space like that? I agree though with Bob that it does need a refresh. So is there a way that we can do a light refresh and preserve some of the things that we've heard from our community members tonight that they love about that location? I think that's all my comments.
Thank you. Yeah, so I agree with a lot of the comments raised by my council members up here. I'll just start with the fire station. I think it really has to be priority one that we have. I mean, it's crazy that we have currently 4 fire stations that are seismically unsound. We know a big earthquake is going to happen in the future. The question is not, if, but when. And so we're moving forward with South Laguna, but we really need to get to the point where we have 4 functioning seismically sound fire stations. I think that's just a bare minimum from a public safety standpoint. So then the question is, how do we get there? I tend to agree with, I don't like the idea of putting it at the village entrance, but I don't see an option in which we could use the current site. So then that sort of leaves, okay, what are the other options? The one that intrigues me is the current, which we own, the former OCTA bus stop. I think that's an intriguing option. And, the issues here are about the zoning and the cost, but we own the site and we could zone it to what it needs to be in the timeline that it would take. So I'd be very interested from a standards of coverage perspective, if that would be an even better option than the village entrance. Because I do think that, even in terms of the parking impact, you might actually have, which is a little bit counterintuitive because this was, has parking there now, you might actually take away less parking spaces than you would at the village entrance. So I'm very intrigued by that. But I ultimately think that our priority just needs to be moving forward on a site. It's not going to be, that's what we're elected to do, is make hard choices for the, the public safety of the greater town. So I'm intrigued by the OCTA bus stop that we own and would want to see more on that. And then if we could have the EOC there, I think that would be great. I think it would function as an EOC because it's just a short walk away from City Hall. So that would be my perspective. The Goodyear side, I think, is actually, like, from a standards of coverage perspective, and again, I'm not an expert, but intuitively it looks like it could be a good option. But I don't really, to Bob's point, I don't want to be in a position where we're trying to be, making an offer, because I do think this is really an urgent need, is to get this fire station built and seismically sound. And then moving on to the CRC, I mean, my conclusion on this is that if we really want to make it the world-class recreation center, I think we're going to have to put a lot of money into it. We don't have that money. So, but we do have a lot of needs and financial needs in this town for public safety related facilities. And so I think that there is a way potentially to use, part of the site, and it could even be less than what's contemplated in the second option here. And you could even focus on the part that's to the south. And, if there was some sort of a deal that could be made with the Rubies where you could take access from the Rubies and then, build up into it, that's a compelling option. I think we do need to think a lot about the RENA discussion, and, because the consequences there are really could be really draconian for us if we are in a situation where we have to upzone for a lot of units in other places. I think that you could do you could have entitled land here that is not going to have a huge community impact if it's done in a really smart and thoughtful way. And so to Bob's point, I think moving forward with an overlay process is a smart approach. It doesn't mean that we have to move forward with it, but at least it gives us options, because from a financial perspective, the idea of selling it unentitled would just not be smart when we have so much land, so much land value that would be generated from just that act that we have a monopoly on, which is zoning. So I think that is something that deserves serious consideration. And I think that there's a way to actually keep a lot of the parts that people enjoy about the CRC, including the existing recreation and gym. I mean, I would like to have that be a field, which I think actually option concept 2 does contemplate. And then, going to Lang Park, I think at the end of the day, we don't really have the money to be doing a lot of this stuff. It's this of compared to the option, my priority is the fire station. My second priority is how do we create revenue to deal with all of our public safety needs that have been unmet for a while, and which relates to the CRC question. And then I think Lang Park, I do think that there is an option to better utilize the existing gym, just to think about, making some improvements. I don't think it has to be to this degree. I tend to agree with the speakers that we don't need parking for the sake of parking. We want to make sure that if we had, for residents, that they're able to take advantage of it. So I would put the Lang Park options as a lower priority because we just don't have the money to do it. But again, I think this is a planning exercise, and that's what the whole point of a facilities master plan is to, have these discussions at a super high level. And so I appreciate the great work that's been done by the consultant team to do just that. So in terms of, because Dave, I want to give you I think we want good feedback from this. So I think why don't we start at the fire station? What I'm hearing is that there is support for, or I don't know, what are you hearing from this discussion on the fire station?
Can I throw in one quick
Go
comment?
ahead.
Because it's regarding the fire station. Would it be worth exploring? Years ago, we used to have the corporate yard right here next to City Hall, and then we moved it out to the canyon. Right now, a lot of what is being taken from the water district is corporate activities. Would it be worth studying having the water district move out to their property at the El Moro, and then the city could see how that existing, not tearing it down, seeing what that property could accommodate. Maybe if the police department moved over there, this space next to us would accommodate the future fire station. And remember that building over there, or that property also includes that real estate office. This might be a long shot, but there might be a little bit of room over there for some housing, similar to what they did in San Juan Capistrano, where the housing project offset the cost of the city hall. So it might be interesting just to evaluate that scenario.
I think that's a good point.
I support that.
Is there support for that evaluation?
I agree.
Okay. So I'm hearing support.
I also support your interest in the bus stop location. I think that's a good one to look at.
Yeah, what did you guys think? Because I feel like the bus stop, in a way, it's almost like like we haven't really thought about it, but it seems like it could be the perfect site. Was there a lot of analysis on it? Or are there things that we're missing here that wasn't included in the analysis, but why that might not be a good option?
I think it was just looking at every option available.
Yeah.
And it seemed to make sense from a pull-through perspective.
Yeah.
It's a small site, so it'd have to be pretty vertical in terms of building.
Okay.
But it seems like a feasible idea.
I think some more now. What do you guys think about that site?
Well, and just to be clear with the water district concept, the idea would be that it could also absorb other, other departments that,
100%.
have outgrown some of their space over here. I just wanted to be clear. It wasn't just for the fire
I
station.
think that was the consensus for that. I heard that right. But what about just looking at it from a fire station perspective, the bus stop? Is that something that we were saying is maybe, there's zero interest in, or is that worthy of further analysis?
I'm interested in looking at it more.
I mean, we could look at, it's kind of a long, it's a lot narrow space though. Is that enough room to build a good fire station there?
I don't know.
Well, I think we're zeroing in on some options. I mean, why don't we just direct staff to come to look at the option Mark articulated, the village entrance and that one. Just hone it down to those three.
Well, and in theory, you could even do both, right? Because what Mark's describing could be unrelated to the fire station. That was your point, Mark, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we want more analysis onto what Mark's point, looking at that, looking at the bus stop, and because I mean, from my perspective, if that's not going to work, I would, if neither of those options provides the right path, I would want to move forward with the village entrance approach, which I really don't want to do. But it seems like if that's the only way that we have a seismically sound fire station one, then it's hard to see what the other option would be.
I
Okay.
think I'm pretty clear about this site and the fire station.
Okay.
And the tie into the water district overall. Let's jump to the CRC and Lang Park. I heard, it's okay, a little bit of a flip. It's a light Lang Park thing should be studied. So some minor changes. So see what the gym would look like if it were expanded, maybe add some parking.
Are we at the point where we're like doing change orders, or is this still within our scope to do that? Because I mean, to me, it's not the highest priority in terms of Lang Park.
Okay.
That's where I am. I don't know where the council is. I don't want to send people spinning because I feel like that's to some extent what we're doing.
Well, we would
here.
only do that if we got rid of the CRC.
Yeah, we're doing this in reverse order and I apologize. Because what I was also hearing from you was CRC, not entitle the whole site potentially, but
Yeah.
consider a plan that looks at keeping the gymnasium and possibly a field on top of the parking area.
Potentially, but I think that to Bob's point, there's no reason why we couldn't, I think this was your point, I don't want to describe it wrong, but that moving forward with the overlay creates options in the future. Was that your point?
Yeah, I think I would recommend moving forward with the overlay of the entire site.
That's where I would be.
But
and, yeah.
I see
then
Holly nodding.
I
Okay.
would look at, I would have staff look at preserve the gymnasium, like you just said, Dave.
Okay.
Preserve the gymnasium,
Yeah.
some elements of it. And is there, a portion of it that could be devoted to housing that would help alleviate or satisfy some of our arena needs?
Yeah.
It would also be interesting to understand what the property tax benefit would be.
Sure. Is that a majority of the council is interested in looking at what Bob just said?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I think that we can also make it easy from a staff perspective of like at a certain point, like we get the overlay, that's not the complicated part here. The complicated part is what do you do with it? And that we could kind of put on, do an RFI and get ideas from people out, make them do the work as opposed to us. But I don't think that I don't think you actually need the overlay to figure that out. But I think the overlay process is something that we should have staff come back with kind of what the next steps would be there.
Questions, Gavin, Dustin, feel clear on that? Okay.
No, I think we're pretty clear, but we may need to come back with some change orders if there's some additional work. Like, for example, on Lang Park, I know we have a number of concept designs that go into a light version. So those may meet what the council needs. I just need to go back and take a look again.
Is there a need to be spending more money on that and doing more analysis, or is that something that could just come back to us later? We have options that are available to us, and then in the CIP, when that comes up, we could explore it further. What do you guys think?
Well, I think listening to what some of the comments were, public comments, there ought to be some effort to get public feedback on. There are some concepts here, right? Already. What do you think about Lang Park? Do you want to do nothing, do a little bit, do a lot?
Do you think that should be done as part of the next CIP cycle rather than as a standalone project? I think that's your point, Alex, is let's not spend any more money on this right now. Let's wait and see when we're looking at the city as a whole, decide if that rises to the top of our list of priorities. And if it does,
Spend
we
the
can
time on the community
spend some more time on design.
That's where I would be. I think that this facilities master plan gives us some ideas that can be the baseline for those future discussions, right? And then we could, but I don't want to be spending more money on it now.
Back to Pat's question, did we look at the Forum Theater?
I think that's already part of this. 'Cause that's what we decided at the last meeting, was that we were going to prioritize that.
All right, good.
So I think, yeah, you got what you wanted before you even came, Pat. So,
We knew you were going to show up, Pat. Ready for
anything else, Dave, that you need from us?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
It was
Good.
really great information. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to our consultant team. Really well done report. Thank you to the public for sharing your thoughtful insights, and we'll go from there. So see everyone back at 5. Okay. Yeah. So now this is a lot. So we are gonna, because I have to list all these names. So what we are gonna do now is adjourn to closed session. So first we'll take public comments on any of the items listed on the closed session. I don't see any members of the public wanting to speak. And then so now what I'm gonna do is go through the different, we have a lot of properties on this closed session. So the first one is with the APN starting with 3-digit 644. The agency, do I have to read the whole thing, or is that? Okay, so item 1A. Our agency negotiators, Dave Kiff, city manager, negotiating parties, Peter Afrasiabi. And then item B, as listed on the agenda, agency negotiator, Dave Kiff, city manager, negotiating parties, Emma Thier. And then property C, Dave Kiff as our negotiating party, and then the other negotiating party, William Bortz. And then item D, Dave Kiff is our negotiator, and then the other one is the Frederick Claremont Revocable Trust. And then item E, Dave Kiff, city manager, David Perry, president of the board, Festival of the Arts. And then item F, Dave Kiff, city manager, Kenneth J. Cummins Trust is the other negotiating parties. And then the rest is as stated on the agenda. So we will adjourn and be back at 5.